Hello and welcome to Clamp, the weekly podcast where we discuss all things relating to creating, living, and making projects. I'm your host, Grant Alexander, and joining me as always is Adam Mackey and Morley Kurt. Today, we were inspired by play, and we wanted to talk about the different things that we can do to have play inspire our creativity. And this was a topic brought to us by Morley, so I want to pass it over to him to chat about what inspired him to think about this. And
So what inspired me to think about this was talking to my therapist, because you're talking about sort of like the inner child and how, nurturing that inner child in creative work is very important, because the inner child is very in touch with free-form creativity and, free association and playfulness. And from those things, creativity and creative expression usually come. And so I've just become more conscious of that in the last few weeks since we've sort of had that discussion, and trying to figure out like where that fits into my day, because I think it can be hard for me to be playful and to be silly for a variety of reasons. And it's really important to make intentional time to do that. So I find that when I put out a video, for example, so today, April 27th, I put out a video, and a lot of times when I put out a video, it feels like when you finish a big project and you feel a little like, well, now what? And sort of like depleted of energy, because there was all this work that went into it and all this energy, and then it happened, and I kind of feel a little low afterwards, for lack of a better term. I don't know if other people feel this way, but it's definitely a way that I feel. And I think I found that on those release days, those are a good time for me to play a little bit and maybe just try to find things around my space that I can tinker with. Like today, for example, I don't know if everyone would classify this as play, but for me, it felt a little playful. I have this toolbox that I made in university, and I really don't like it. It's not very sentimental. It is bad, I would say. Like I have two wooden toolboxes that I made. One of them I made at camp, and I was probably about 12 years old. And that one is very sentimental. It reminds me of camp. It's solid wood and it's rough, but like it's special. And the other one that I made, it's plywood. It's made of found materials. It's inconvenient to use. It's fully closed, so it's hard to get at things. And I've cannibalized it for parts. And I was like, okay, I just want to kind of take this thing apart and go through things. And I was just kind of going through the tools and thinking about how I might use some of these tools in other projects where, I don't use them for their intended purpose very much day to day. So that to me felt very playful and it was fun. And I thought about a lighting project, and I started taking apart some switches and things with no real goal in mind. So that for me was like a nice way to just kind of explore some ideas that I've been thinking of. And I think that is as important as rest, which is sort of the dichotomy I feel like I've been focused on for a while, is like work and rest. But it's not just work and rest. It's like work and rest and play, which I would call an entirely separate category, because it's still engaging all of those creative muscles, but in a much more like free form, free associative way without like a specific goal in mind.
Right. It's not about being productive. It's about doing what you want. Right?
Yeah.
Like, is that what you mean?
Yeah. And I think it's also about living in the moment, which is another thing that can be hard to do, I find, when my mind is always planning and like in trying to turn what I do into a business. I'm like, I can find myself just spending my day constantly just like trying to look at things and notice and plan and strategize and think about the next project and always be going on to the next thing. But to take the time to play and focus on things in my environment allows me to be a little more in the moment, which in a lot of ways is like more productive because you actually are like in, you know, in the things that I want to do, I want to be able to notice pain points in my life and find inspiration in those things for projects. And being in the moment is super helpful for that because I could be like, oh, this is what I like about, you know, whatever tool that I have. This is what I don't like about it. This is how I would turn this into a different project.
Right.
So I'll turn it over to you guys. Like, how do you find play in your days?
So I'll go first if you don't mind. I find, so there's like, I first have to like go back and kind of try and define play, because oftentimes my son Fletcher will say, come play with me. And as the dad, sometimes I'm in a mood to play and it's like, I've got nothing else to do. Let's play things. Right. And other times I have other things, like I've got things to do in my life. Everyone has things to do. And I just can't break out of whatever it is to play with him. But as the dad, I kind of go, well, that's my job to go play with him. So I know there's times where we play and it's like these fantastic story creating fun times. And those are great. And there's other times where we go and play and I'm not there. I'm somewhere else. And I don't want to be there. And I don't, like, I know that can feel bad as a dad saying that about their kid, but I'm like, I have other, like, I need to get something else done. And I know I need to get it done now before you go to sleep because it's going to wake you up. Like if I'm going to make a whole bunch of noise, like I was screwing stuff into the wall that's in my garage that's attached to the house. Well, my wife called me and said, hey, you know, stop doing that. That's really loud. It's that kind of thing that I kind of go is, I don't know. I can't remember what the question was or where I was going with it, but I know there's times where play is something that I can really enjoy and other times I can't.
As a fellow dad, I can really understand what you're trying to say. And I'm sure all the father listeners out there and mothers too, 100% understand what you're trying to say. Yeah, it is. It's really hard when you have so much on your mind and you know that you're not present, but you need to be present, or you want to be present, but you can't.
Right.
And it makes it really hard. Taking away from the parenting side of it, I think I don't really get play per sense other than with my kids. My play is more the digital side of it. So I find joy and play with like designing things that I know I'm never going to make or that I hope to one day make. I don't know. I guess that's because the only real time that I would get to play, I'm actually trying to get something done because I don't have any other time to do it.
Right. Yeah, that's the hard thing. It's like, I actually relate a lot to what you're saying about playing digitally. That's one of the things I really like about 3D printing is that I'll design something a few times before I actually make the video about it. And so it takes a lot of the pressure off of that design process and the prototyping process. Like I feel like I can just play around and experiment. And then once I actually get to the point where like I can talk about it and be articulate about it, I'm like, okay, well now I'm going to make the video. And that kind of frees me up to be a little more playful in my process.
Yeah. But to bring it back around to what Grant was saying, that even though I'm played digitally, in my head, I'm still doing that all the time. I'm thinking, all right, how am I going to design this on the computer later on, even though I should be playing with my kids right now? And then how am I going to put this together? And then like I'm halfway through a project and I'm thinking, all right, well, how am I going to fix this mistake? And I'm never there.
So I know for me, like, I remember I used to do things that were just for fun all the time with no end goal in mind. Um, and there was at some point I kind of switched, and then everything became like, after high school, it was like everything became a, either productive or like it was like drinking. It was like, that's not play. It's time, passing time. And I think there's a big difference between like going out with your buddies and having fun. That's a release, but it's often not play, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
pastime. It's like, baseball. It's not really, you don't play the game of baseball. It's just a pastime.
We're not athletes. We play baseball.
Right. So I don't know. Is there, why don't you just kind of go around and talk about a little bit about how you've been playing, if you can.
Well, today, for example, like I was hanging out with my nephew, and like for me, like I'm not a dad, so I don't have the same pressures that you guys have in that you're spending like all this time with him. When I'm with him, I can really just play with him, and it's this huge
Right.
novelty because like, I had COVID last week and the week before, so like I hadn't hung out with him for a while and could literally just play with him. And tap into a little more of that like silly space. And I don't know how much that applies necessarily to making, but it definitely applies to creativity and just thinking in a more fun way, which I think is only beneficial for, everything I want to do with regards to creative expression and making videos.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know I know Abby always said you'd make a really great father because she saw me playing with, like, we went to a wedding and I was playing with all the kids, right? Because like we were the young couple there, and they were playing with like balloons and stuff and whatever. I was always that playful guy, and I kind of wish I could get that back. And I think part of it is when you spend so much time with someone, you end up like taking them for granted, and eventually it's gonna, one day my son's gonna leave the house, and I'm gonna be like, where did that time go? And I'm gonna definitely regret not being more present. And I think about it all the time while he's in bed. I think, on days where I feel like I've just been distracted, I wish I'd played with him more. But that to kind of go back into it, I go, it's it's like when you live in a city, you never visit the landmarks. I feel it's the same sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
when I didn't live in Ottawa, I went to the Ottawa museums. Since being here, admittedly, having kids, it changes things because you want to bring them to the museums. But I've lived here for like 15 years before going to any of the museums in town. And even that, like Parliament, I only went there because I was going there for work. It's like,
Yeah.
it's all these like weird things where I go, but it's because I don't have time to allow myself to experience that. But I should just
so
make
many
time.
responses.
Go.
Okay, one, my best friend just had a baby. Well, his wife had a baby. So congratulations to them. But again, he is the guy, the young couple, who's the same age as me, but this is their first kid, who everyone goes, he's going to be a great father because every time we're with kids, he's run around with them and all that sort of stuff. Two, we have people at my work that are like, oh, I went down to the entrance and we stayed there for a couple of nights. And I'm like, mate, that place is a shithole. It's like 2 minutes away from my house. But to them, it's amazing because they don't live here.
Right.
So, yeah, what you're saying about Ottawa. And I had something else, but I forget what it was. But yeah, with the time thing, I wanted to say, like, I think time is the biggest thing. Like when I don't know about you, Morley and Grant. I'm sure you're on the same page as me. Like, when are you ever bored? You don't have time to be bored.
I get bored, but then I feel guilty about being bored because I'm like, I have too much stuff to do. I'm not allowed to be bored.
Same.
Right.
But I remember
I'm never-
being. Really, you're never bored?
I honestly just don't have time. I'm either at work or I'm home with the kids. And then I go to sleep and then I go to work and then I'm home with the kids. And if I do have a couple of hours, I'm trying to get stuff done that I can't do any other time.
Right.
Like I never just sit there and think, what am I going to do with myself?
I used to get bored at work all the time. And that was because I didn't want to do the work that I knew I had to get done.
Right.
Like stuff the non-urgent administrative work that like ties up, the back end of a file. Everything's done. The actual people have been informed about that needed to be informed about the stuff. Now I have to write a file closure report. And I knew I would just be bored not wanting to do that. And at work, what they used to put in, they had like a lot of mental health stuff. One of the things they did was called Mandala Mondays, where they had coloring. So the big boardroom would be open at lunch and you could go in there and they had, thousands of pencil crayons and all these different coloring books for coloring for adults. And it was this like free form play. Now I never once joined in on it, but I always thought about it. But I was too busy eating lunch. If they'd done it during non-lunch time, I probably would have gone.
I'm sure a lot of people would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm thinking about the dichotomy you presented between like play and releases. And I feel like a lot of the ways that like I play currently are releases, but I don't know if I would say that they're not play for that. So like one example I can think of is like recently I've just been taking, 20 minutes in the afternoon to go skateboard really fast down the streets around my neighborhood.
Right.
And it's super fun. Like, just mind goes blank and just really in the moment, carve around, singing music to myself, look at all the sights, look at all the people. And that feels like a release. That's like, let my mind wander. But it also does feel like play. Feels very similar to like when I go driving and I like blast music. That to me also feels like play. And it feels constructive in a similar way than that as maybe like active play, like drawing or playing music, because it does make things come to mind. It helps clear my head. So I don't know if I would say that just by something being sort of a release, it's not play.
I can definitely see that. I find it very interesting you say that though, because I see like in a movie and like someone's just sitting there on a park bench, just like looking out at the sights. And I think, who does that? Like really? And I'm sure people do. I'm sure a lot of people do. And that probably is their play. That is their release from reality. And I think when I think of the word play, that's what I think of, is like the release from reality and not thinking about what actually needs to be thought about, if that makes sense. And I don't really do that.
Is it a release from reality, or is it being more in touch with reality?
I don't know.
Because when you're sitting on that bench, you're experiencing life more than you are when you're like, I gotta file X form to Y person for this human construct that we decided is important.
Okay, maybe reword it to like release yourself from your mind or something. I never really get that, and I think that's kind of what we're sort of talking about here with play, is that you, by pulling stuff apart and that, you're not thinking about, all right, how am I going to put this together? You're more thinking of, right, I'm just going to pull this apart and see what happens. And your mind's not going 1,000 times trying to think of how you're going to do it. You're just going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Do you play video games?
Me?
Very rarely.
Okay, Mr. PUBG and Fortnite.
Mate, I haven't played a video game for so long. My wife and I played Crash Bandicoot the other day, actually, for like 10 minutes. And then she was able to watch Kardashians.
I want to play video games with Eden. And we've been talking about it for like a couple months. Like maybe we should get like a Nintendo Switch or something. Because we both like playing games, and like we play Boggle together pretty regularly, and we're pretty competitive. And I was like, I feel like we would get really into like Mario Kart playing that together.
So I
You should
think
make an arcade.
once you get competitive about it, I think it stops being play.
Yeah. I don't know. We when we like my wife and I pretty much we only play Crash Bandicoot or Donkey Kong, and we don't get competitive with it. But it's sort of it is that release. Like we're not thinking. All we're thinking about is the game
Right. Like I
until one
used
of
to
us starts playing on
play
our phone.
back in the day when before kids. Me and my wife used to play board games all the time, and it was always like there's obviously it's a board game. Someone's going to win, someone's going to lose, but it wasn't about the winning and the losing. It was about having fun playing the game, right? And I think that's where I think that you have to be doing it because you want to do it for it to be play.
Yeah, but I don't
Right.
think just
Yeah.
by nature of it being competitive, it takes that aspect out of it.
I think as soon as you start it being competitive, then I think it stops being play. It could still be fun, but I don't think it's play. Right?
Once you add in competitive, you're strategizing.
I don't know. All
then
competitive
you're
means
thinking
is
about
that
it.
like you sort of care about the outcome, but there's a
Right.
huge range of how much do you care. Like I would call Eden and I's Boggle playing competitive, but it still feels very playful.
Does it feel playful or does it feel fun? Because I
Both.
think you might be like mixing those together, and maybe I guess Boggle's kind of a weird one because it's a very creative game, but like you can play hockey and then you can play hockey competitively, and I'd say it's no longer playing. Right now, it's like
But
almost a job. When there's an obligation
Yeah.
to it, I think that's part of where it stops being play,
Yeah.
and where
I think we're
in my
I think
mind,
we're thinking about competitive differently. Like I don't think I'm thinking about it to the same degree as you are. Like or maybe I'm using it incorrectly.
no, I think as soon as you start caring about the outcome, I think it takes away from how playful it is. How about that?
Right.
Like I think they're a scale, like one of those. You add more caring about the outcome, it becomes less and less play.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. And
So-
my son and I play a lot, but it's not really competitive. He used to get really upset if I won, and now he doesn't really seem to care.
that's good. Sounds like
good.
he's growing.
Yeah.
I feel
Speaking of
I was
great game to play,
Go for it.
we're just going to talk over each other the whole time.
Edit that out.
You go, Molly.
I was gonna say a quick tangent is that I lost my train of thought. Adam, you go.
Great game to play, actually. In saying that, we just got a game called Flip. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, it's really fun. So it's like you got your normal although the cards are a little bit different. There's no like pick up 4 and stuff. It's like pick up 2 or whatever. And then there's a card that flips the deck. So you flip everything over, your hand over, the deck over, and then the pickup pile over. And it's like a whole new dark side. So like all the cards are double-sided. There's a dark side and a light side. And it's so fun.
Yeah, it's
My son
sounds like fun.
and I've been playing that so much.
So, in preparation for today's discussion, I was reading some stuff online instead of playing with my son. I was reading some articles online about why adults should be playing more. And I was reading about, recess is good for adults too. And it made me think, like, when's the last time you just kind of went out there as if it was recess? And I know Morley, it was like, 2 years ago for you in high school, but when was the last time you had a kind of, for lack of a better term, like a recess period where it was like, go forth and have fun?
I would say 2 days ago.
It's a really great
So there's
point.
this big park in Toronto called High Park. I would compare it to Central Park in its scale. And it has this amazing basically enclosed hiking trail. So you can take your dog off leash, and there's a fence on either side of the trail, and it's basically a linear dog park. So we went there with Eden's brother and his dog and just walked around for like 2 hours. And it was so fun. Like, I think mostly because it felt very much we were out of the city, and it was raining a little bit. So it was like a little bit of sort of feeling of like, uh-oh, this weather could be a problem. But it also was very beautiful. Like, spring had sprung, it was warm, the plants were budding, and I felt very just removed from all of the obligations that I had. And we had those great conversations that you only seem to have on hikes. And I was like, this is amazing. I feel like I'm camping right now. And I think it was just mostly because it was an experience I hadn't had at least since fall 2021. You know, it's always that feeling of spring. You're like, oh my God, like I feel like it's been winter forever. So that was a strong feeling. Like, that felt very recess like, you know, and jumping around rocks and walking on logs and making an effort to just amble. It was great.
Adam?
I don't really know if I really have. I mean, the only real sort of getaway I ever used to have was I used to go for a walk every day. But I've never really, I don't think I've really ever had that sort of recess.
Well, so the last time you had it was in school?
Probably, yeah.
At work, have you ever gone on a retreat?
No, my work, I'm just a number. There's no...
Fair.
We don't do that.
So I think for me, the last time I can remember it kind of feeling like a recess, because there's a difference between like me deciding I'm going to go do a hike with my dog or whatever, and it feeling like just get out of work free card, which is like what I feel recess is. It's like hey, get out of here. You've been working so hard. You need to go have a little break and do whatever you want to do. There's nothing. And it's definitely at work. They had these retreats. And then at the end of the work, it wouldn't be the end of the work day, but it was like, hey, go and do whatever you want to do. You've got, the next 3 hours are yours to continue chatting with your colleagues or go have some fun and do whatever you want to do. So I think that's kind of where I feel like, we combined those days. They were always at Britannia Beach in Ottawa, and we'd have like obstacle courses set up and, that kind of fun, like it was actually fun activities at work as opposed to all the things you see on, well, they're probably just like The Office. It's only fun if you like the people you work with. But anyways, that's like the last time I can think of having a real recess feeling to it. I don't know.
I got a lot of it at working at the STEAM project last summer because it was a summer camp. And so we had like staff socials once a week or once every 2 weeks. Like, we literally played laser tag one week, and it was the most fun I'd had in a long time. And that is a good example of, I would say, the competitiveness of it made it way more fun. Like, caring about getting shot or shooting other people in this laser tag game was an absolute blast. I think that
did it make it more playful?
Yeah, it was. I mean, in making it in thinking about like playfulness as fun and carefreeness and just enjoying the moment. Yes, like I didn't care about any of those work relationships. It was all just fun in the moment. And I think that's a particular type of fun you get when you're playing a really intense runaround game like laser tag or capture the flag or manhunt or paintball.
So if you got hit, you were upset, or were you like angry, or were like, I think this is where I think when things get competitive, that means people care about the outcome and are angry at outcomes, right? And are like like, or saddened or depressed, or like the outcome mattered to them. The outcome of laser tag did not matter to you. If you won or lost, you still had fun. Now, you
Right.
didn't want to lose, but
So I think we have different connotations with competitiveness. It sounds like you have this connotation of competitiveness, which involves a negative association with loss, but I don't think I have that same connotations with competitiveness. Like I wanted to win, but I wasn't upset if I was hit or if we lost.
right. I guess, yeah. When you say you care about the outcome, I guess, I don't know. Maybe I'm just, yeah, like you said, maybe I just don't have a healthy relationship with competitiveness.
I think that's it, honestly. And I think like I was on a lot of losing teams growing up. Like I don't know if it was just me or if it was luck of the draw, but I was on like 3 soccer teams, 3 basketball teams where we lost like 95% of the games. So I had to get very comfortable with losing from a young age.
Any particular losers you want to throw names out there? No. My work actually does golf. We have like a golf social club thing, which I've been thinking about joining. So that, I never really thought about that for the escape side of it. So that's really interesting because it's something I've thought about joining up for. And yeah, you really made me think about it now.
Now, I want to take this in a little bit of a different direction because I want to talk about one of the things that I read in the article was talking about how play helps with creativity. And we are, the 3 of us and most people listening to this, like to do creative things. Everything we're making, unless we're following plans to a T, we're being creative in the way that we do things. So in thinking about, playing with my son, it often makes me think about designing new Hot Wheels tracks, new Marble Run tracks that don't exist anymore, which becomes a playful thing to do because my son doesn't care if I spent 17 hours doing something and it comes out, or if I spent 5 seconds, taping some cardboard to the Marble Run. He likes both things equally. So that's the fun play part, is that I'll have fun making something and give it to him, and seeing him play with it is fun. Is there anything like that you feel like, so the creativity I get is like, he'll say like, I want the marbles to jump. Okay, well, I guess tonight I'm supposed to go and hop on Fusion and make a marble ski ramp style thing so that he can have his marbles jump from one tower to another tower. Is there any kind of creativity that you found, either one of you, from the playing that you've been doing? Has it inspired you in any way?
Yeah. Design challenges. Like have an hour to fulfill an objective with limited tools and limited materials. It hugely sparks creativity in my experience.
Right.
Making like Rube Goldberg machines or like the spaghetti tower building challenges, the classic marshmallow spaghetti and tape challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of those, you come up with really like nifty solutions. And like you kind of alluded to, you realize where effort and like a polished final product is important and where like function is more important. And I found that the same way with doing like the 5 videos in 5 days. Like that in a lot of ways felt very playful. And I feel like it's made my videos going forward feel more playful, in that in doing more like in the moment voiceover, I can be more in the moment and experience it. And it helps me be able to create in the moment and not have to plan it out so far in advance, because part of the end product that I want to share is showing that process and how the project evolved in the moment.
Right. Adam?
I don't know. I don't see, this is hard for me because I don't really have time to play. So I don't really have these like things that I can relate to.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. Um, in saying that, if no one else has anything, I have a question.
All right, go for it.
All right. If you can remember, what is the last thing and when was the last time that you made something just for the fun of it to play? Not trying to make a function, just to see how something works or how it would go together or something like that. Does that make
Well,
sense?
I'd have to say that this leather harmonica thing was really the sheath for my harmonica was like just for fun because it's a $3 harmonica. It doesn't even need a leather sheath. Like you can still
Yeah.
buy them brand new today, and it looks the exact same. It had no, there was no reason to do it really. I don't even play the harmonica. If you've watched my Instagram reel, you'd see my beautiful playing. Um, it was
Yep.
completely for fun. It was just for making a fun video.
Yeah.
With the caveat of without a purpose or a function, that's hard because even the things that I make not for videos have a function. Like the hardcover journal I made it because I was filling up my other journal and I wanted another one. So I think the main thing I can think of is playing the bass, which I've been really bad about making time for recently. And I'm trying to get back into it. And it's one of the nice things about playing an instrument is that you can step away for a long time and come back to it, and most of the muscle memory is still there. It's amazing how slowly
Yep.
musical adeptness goes away. So I'm going to
Definitely.
try to make more time for that going forward because it is really just a for fun thing. I have these delusions of grandeur in my head while I play of oh yeah, I'm going to be on stage one day, going to play with a band. This is going to be awesome. And it's fun to think about, but it's not going to happen realistically. So yeah, I'm going to get back into that.
Yeah. So when you say the hardcover, so your first ever sort of leather project, was that a video or did you just make something to see how it would go together?
No, the leather hardcover book that I made for me. It's something that I didn't make it just to see how it would go together. I made it because I wanted a leather hardcover bound journal to use. I wouldn't
Right.
call it purely playful for that reason. I did care about the outcome. It wasn't just doodling or drawing for fun. It was, I cared about it, but I just didn't make a video about it. I didn't make it to share.
Yeah. Interesting.
How about you?
Well, I was going through my Instagram feed to see if there's anything on there because I didn't really have an answer. But I mean, I went through when I first made all my cabinetry and stuff. I had this grand plan that I was going to make Bronco logo pulls for all the doors and everything, and I went through the full process of designing, cutting, wood burning, and everything. And that's probably the last time that I actually got a chance to play with something. Everything else has been made for a reason.
And I think,
So,
I think it's really good for everyone that's listening. I think you should all take some time and put it aside and put it as playtime where
yeah,
you do something for the fun of doing something, and you don't do it with any goal in mind. And if everyone did that, I think the world would be a better place. You know who else really makes things a better place? Our Patreon supporters. And I want to thank them all for supporting the show because without them, we wouldn't be able to afford the fun things like our website and this podcast that we're doing. I especially want to thank the F Clamp levels, Brent Jarvis from Clean Cut Woodworking, Vincent Ferrari from Because We Make, Austin from High Caliber Craftsman. We did a special thing this week. We're going to be putting out our pre-show for free at patreon.com/clamp with a special announcement. So everyone who goes over to patreon.com/clamp who isn't a Patreon member will be able to view it. You can only view it on the Patreon website, so I'm sorry about that. It's not going to be in your feed. But you can listen to the episode there, and there's a special announcement. So everyone who goes over there gets, a little notice, extra couple days notice or weeks or whatever we end up doing on this special announcement. And anyone who signs up on there gets access to all the rest of the pre-shows, access to all the after shows, as well as a keychain made by the one and only Morley Kurt. So we'd really appreciate if you go over there. That's a little free thing we're doing this week. And if you can't support us, we completely understand. We appreciate everyone who listens to the show, everyone who shares the show, and everyone who is writing reviews. We haven't got a review in a while, so if you want to go over to the Apple iTunes or the Android people who use Podcast Addict, you can review it there. Otherwise, I think those are the only two main review spots. But if you want to go do that, head on over, and then Morley will read your review. And until then, let's head on over to Clampmendations.
Clampmendations! So for the next journal that I want to make, I've been thinking about how I want to do the end papers. And I was researching paper making, and then I thought about paper marbling. So I watched this video by Rajiv Surenda called A Beginner's Guide to Paper Marbling. And there's a lot more that goes into that process than I expected. And I don't really feel ready to do it at this point with my current setup. But I would really like to do it one day. It's a amazing process. It's very like alchemical, kind of like leatherworking with all these like very specific chemicals that you'll never find anywhere else. Like there's a certain moss that you add to the water to make it coagulate. Then you add like ox gallbladder to the ink as a surfactant to make it spread out. And you like treat the paper with alum so the paper will absorb the ink. These are all the traditional methods. I'm sure there's more non-environmentally friendly, efficient ways of doing it now, but it's really cool. It's just a really nice video. Rajiv Surendra, he just has a very nice vibe about him. So yeah, if you're interested in paper marbling, I would suggest this video. It's a pretty beautiful craft.
To me, it looked a lot like hydro dipping. Is it? Mm-hmm. I only looked at the picture of that. I haven't watched the video. Is it like paper marbling or hydro dipping? Sorry.
I haven't done in-depth research into hydro dipping, but as far as I know, hydro dipping is you pull a 3D object up through a film of paint on the surface of water. And when you marble paper, you lay paper down on the surface of water and it takes up the paint. They probably evolved differently because like paper marbling is super old, as old as people have made books, because it's a traditional way of making end papers.
Cool. Yeah, give that a look.
Well, my Clampmendation this week is a podcast called Fake Doctors and Real Friends. Sorry, Fake Doctors, Real Friends. There's no end. Zach Braff and Donald... I can't remember his last name now. Anyway, the two main guys from Scrubs have made a podcast years ago, apparently. And every week they rewatch an episode of Scrubs, and then they talk about all the behind the scenes and everything for that episode and why things are the way they are, and little snippets here and there that you don't notice in the episode, but they talk about. And it's really interesting. So the point of the podcast is meant to be that you watch an episode, listen to the episode, watch an episode, listen to the episode, which is what I'm currently doing. And it's really interesting they talk about, this is the first time this person came in and they did this and stuff like that. Yeah.
I've heard good things. And if I had time to play Scrubs again from the beginning, I would do it. I think I've watched it 3 times.
I drive an hour to work, an hour from work. So I watch an episode. Well, I watch 2 episodes at work when I have time, because they're only 20 minutes each. And then I listen to the episodes to and from work.
Right.
And then I watch 2. So
I'm just, I wish I had that extra time because Scrubs was really good.
Yeah. it is. So yeah.
Well, I'm going to recommend that everyone check out the Super Tea Pink project, put on by a bunch of people over there in Australia, including Mark Daner and Ash from Woodworking Whiskers and Crafting with the Beard, and there's a whole bunch of other people. But they basically have a raffle and an auction going on, and Morley just deleted what I was reading on my little document. Sorry, they got a raffle and a draw going on where you could get a bunch of really cool stuff, and it's a great charity where they it's basically children's hospitals where the kids they make special shirts for kids so that they don't have to undress when they are getting the different medical tests needed, and these shirts have superheroes on them, and so that's what they're raising money for. There is a lot of amazing stuff going on, but it is only Australian, so I bought some raffle tickets, so if I win I'm going to give my stuff to Adam, and yeah, and then I'm going to tell him to mail it to me. But yeah, everyone should go check it out. It is Australia only to win the stuff. But it's a good cause anyway, so it's worth going to check out.
Yeah, it definitely is. I bought tickets too.
Yeah. Well, how about our Australian word of the week?
Yeah. Australian word of the week this week. I'm honestly running out, so please leave us a review. But the word this week is earbash. Sounds obvious, but it's not.
Well,
Earbash.
If I were to guess earbash, can you use it in a sentence?
I will say this. The word earbash reminds me of Morley.
So, a young person.
No.
Like ear, like the things on the side of your head.
Yeah. EARBASH.
Kind of sounds like something you would like do with friends. Like, let's go ear bash together. Like, go to a concert, listen to really loud music.
It's very interesting because I would have thought your first guess would have been like a conversation.
Yeah, but
no,
you said
it is.
You said it wasn't that. Like you immediately said, "Oh, it's more tricky than it sounds." So I went.
It's not just a conversation. So an earbash is someone who talks too much.
Dang.
Oh, more or Matt. Well, thank you for that one. I wouldn't have guessed it was a noun. Like I wouldn't have thought like, oh, that person's being a real earbash.
Yeah, see, I've never used it in the context of someone like that. I've used it more of just, I guess I have someone that talks too much. I just never thought of it that it's used that way.
All right. Well, thank you, TF Turning, for our theme song. And you can find all of us over on the Clampstagram or the ClampTube. We will be doing a live show. If you're listening to this right now, the live show is, if you're listening to it on the day it was released, obviously not right now. If you're listening to it on the day it was released, the live show will be the next day on YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday, the May 3rd. And that, if you're in Australia, that's Wednesday, the 4th at 11 a.m. Eastern, Australian Eastern time.
That's correct.
So go on over to the ClampTube. If you go on YouTube and then search Morley Adam Grant, we're the ones that look like a clamp. And go find us there.
And if you can't find us there, we'll have links to on Instagram and everything for the live show.
Yes, and probably on clampcast.com. Let's get into the after show.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.